In Kentucky, we don't just take chances, we bet big. This month, I'm sitting down with 4 Kentuckians who made 4 bold moves and asking one question: what was the biggest bet that you ever took on yourself? This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Town & Country Ford. No matter where life's adventures lead you, Town & Country Ford is along for the ride. What is the one thing that you think holds true with running a festival and making it successful regardless of the zip code?
The generation that drank beer or bourbon that their parents or grandparents did, that was no longer cool.
I lived up there in Wisconsin when many of those breweries, it was like such big news that this is closing and they're turning this old factory into loft apartments. Mm-hmm. And I kept thinking, oh my gosh, like what do all these people do for work?
The morale was not good. If you followed the state fair, what I inherited was a $4 million loss and a lot of public pressure.
He is the visionary leader that took a local fair and turned it into a premier global bourbon destination. Welcome to the Best Bet podcast, the man who makes sure that the bourbon capital of the world stays on top. Randy Prasse, he is the COO of the Kentucky Bourbon Festival. Woo!
Yay.
Yes, we're doing it. We're doing it.
They say if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life, and that's me. My whole career has been that. And now we get bourbon on top of it.
Now you get bourbon on top of that. How in the world, Randy, does a kid from Wisconsin end up the head of a global bourbon festival?
It's this is 37 years that I've been involved with producing a festival, a fair, a live event of some sort. And a career just happened. I kind of look back on it and that's how it happened. I started working at the local newspaper in college, got an internship, and they were a sponsor of a festival. And the publisher came to me and said, "You like going to festivals and events and taking pictures." I used to be a concert photographer.
You like going to festivals?
Yeah. He's
That's like saying to kids nowadays, "You like having fun. Why don't you be in charge of this?
Yeah,
you be the fun captain."
He literally said, "I don't know if we're getting our money's worth as a sponsor. I want you to kind of infiltrate and influence the marketing." And so I got on the marketing committee of this little Founders Day festival as a volunteer. And again, I started working in the tourism office, and I had a chance to work with all the festivals.
Was this in Wisconsin first?
Yeah, in Racine, yeah. There were 14 festivals, and I wanted to be involved with the coolest one of them, the music festival, of course. So I went through and I got a contact of the person who started and ran that music festival called Harborfest, and he invited me to a meeting as a guest. The next month, I was on the board, and by the end of the year, they had elected me as the chairman of the event, and it was one of those fresh meat kind of things. I thought I was being honored, but it was like finally someone else was willing to come in and take over.
Let's get this guy to do it.
And now he works for me as our director of ticketing.
No way. So in Wisconsin, did you grow up running a brewery or a family in the brewery business or distillery business or any kind of background with bourbon? What was life like in Wisconsin?
And I grew up.
Don't tell me a dairy farm.
Yeah, it's
Seriously?
literally a dairy farm. Yeah, I grew up. It's now a 7-generation family farm still in the family.
No way.
Yeah. And I had to figure out what I was going to do for a living because at the time, my older brother was going to take over the farm and it wasn't big enough for 2 families. So I literally, like halfway through my senior year in high school, said, well, I better figure out what it is I'm going to do for a living because I can't count on the farm. And I was really into photography. So I started working, doing concert photography but yeah, never anything to do with beer or bourbon. And in the 70s, I mean, there was only a handful and it was all whiskey at that point. I mean, that's kind of, and it had bad connotation, like on TV and video is always the drunken person or the overly social, like the Mad Men, where everybody was drunk and smoking all the time. So growing up, I didn't really have a good feeling about it one way or the other.
In Wisconsin, in Milwaukee specifically, at that time, I mean, the breweries, they were like, that was still rolling big. Absolutely. They had a huge presence then. Was that always seen in Wisconsin as the business that would never go out of business?
Absolutely. I mean, you knew it was going to start coming back and it grew and they got innovative when the craft boom really started and not unlike what happened with bourbon. I mean, the big brands, we're talking about Fred, Jimmy Russell, Bill Samuels, they were all out all over the country, road warriors, just trying to get people to try bourbon and reintroduce it back into culture. And it worked to the point now where you have 100 or more distilleries just in Kentucky producing.
Yeah. So. Right. And I mean, I lived up there in Wisconsin when many of those breweries, it was like such big news that this is closing and they're turning this old factory into loft apartments. And
Mhm.
I kept thinking, oh my gosh, like what do all these people do for work? I mean, that
The
had to be
Pabst, yeah, the
right.
Pabst Brewery
Like
is
many of
now
those places would
amazing.
close down. And it's like, where does that industry go? Overseas?
Well, I mean, obviously, Anheuser-Busch, Molson Coors, Miller, I mean, they're all still producing, but they've all started their own like craft lines because they
Yeah.
had to diversify because they were learning that the generation that drank beer or bourbon that their parents or grandparents did, that was no longer cool. So they were starting to lose markets. So they started creating craft beer. It was still being made by Budweiser, by Miller, what's the one you put the citrus in? Blue Moon.
Blue
I mean, that
Moon.
everybody, thought that was a craft brewery for so long.
Well, you
Um,
made the right choice, like sticking
yeah.
with festivals rather than beer. Some of the
Mhm.
big ones that you got involved in, your stepping stones from that first job, Bastille Days,
Bastille Days and
Wisconsin State Fair,
right.
to working with the Kentucky Derby. That's
Mhm.
a new one to me. I think you told me that
Mhm.
actually like a year or two ago. What is the one thing that you think holds true with running a festival and making it successful, regardless of the zip code, that you still
Mm.
take from that time up there that worked to what could work with the Kentucky Bourbon Festival?
Well, I mean, part of it is the work ethic. Back to the dairy farmer. I didn't know vacations or weekends, so I bring that still where I'm working. I'm not just walking around telling people to do things. I'm out there. I mean, you've seen me on setup days.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wearing shorts and combat boots and a sweaty t-shirt, and hat, and I'm out there doing it. So, but as far as what works, I mean, I think you always have to really know who your audience is.
Yeah.
When it was a music festival, obviously we wanted people there, but we focused on the entertainment first. Like pick good bands, people will come out. At the state fair, I remember it was right in Milwaukee, but people that would come to it weren't the urban people weren't coming to it. It was
Right.
more from outstate. And we figured out early that it's the animals, the livestock, and the competition that really is the special thing about any county or state fair. So we focused on that. We took care of the people that were bringing the animals and make sure they felt like they were special, so they'd want to be there. And then the other part is easy. Marketing it and getting people to come there is easy. And same thing we've done here. I learned something at Churchill Downs from my boss, Greg Bush. I think you know Greg. And there was a meeting where it was the sponsorship people and the ticketing people, and they're all talking about all these millions and millions of dollars of revenue that was generated. Almost like my department is more important than your department. And Greg kind of stopped it and said, "Look, all that's fine. All the televised, all the fanfare, the hats, and the fancy suits. That's all great. The revenue is wonderful. But if you don't have 20 horses in the starting gate, you don't have the Derby.
That's right.
You got to take care of the horsemen. You got to take care of the owners, the trainers, the grooms. Otherwise, all of this will go away if you don't." And that's what I've taken to the Bourbon Festival is I always tell the distilleries that they're number one. Sorry to the fans that buy tickets, you're number two. And the reason I say that is if we lose track of the interests of the distilleries, they will find something sexier, shinier, newer to leave. And I never want that to happen. I always want them to feel that we're focusing on them and they're the most important thing. And then the fans win. The people that come to the festival wins, and ultimately we win because we continue to have a festival that's on the upswing as opposed to plateauing or going out of business.
You mentioned the rock stars. You've worked with a couple of rock stars, bringing them to festivals, haven't you?
Well, I mean, I've interacted with them.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I mean, the music festivals, the state fair, everybody that played the main stage there, I would go back and, I'd have to go meet them. Sometimes it was dumb, like That So Raven. I had to like go take
Oh my
my
gosh.
kids back to meet
Right.
the Doodle Bops or whatever on tour. But
And then
I
there are
got
the
to
guys
meet-
that like come back year after year after year that just
Yeah.
love doing the state fair
Yeah.
circuits.
Yeah. But I mean, I saw like Eric Church on the way
Yeah.
up. He was opening for, I don't remember who he was opening. I remember him. I don't remember, Brad Paisley, I think. But there's some neat ones there. And, we did a very hairy night at the state fair playing up on the hair bands era. So we'd have like Rat and, Cinderella and all the bands that I grew up, so here I am hanging out with Stephen Piercy from Rat. That was
up.
kind of fun,
Yeah.
but
Right.
Yeah.
Did you wear the wig and everything? Did you don a wig every once in a
Okay.
while just to fit in with the hair bands?
This was my first year at the state fair and our first year doing the very hairy night. And the morale was not good. If you followed the state fair, what I inherited was a $4 million loss and a lot of public pressure. And over the course of the 6 years that I was there, we turned it around to where we were posting $2 million net surplus.
Mm-hmm.
But that first year, morale was down. I mean, how is it to go to work every day and look in the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel or about how bad the state fair is losing money? And we fixed it. And people started seeing it turn. So I thought, I got to do something to kind of like jumpstart morale. And so I rode a Harley at the time, big surprise being in Milwaukee,
Mm-hmm.
but I had like my leather chaps and jacket, and I bought a long hair wig and like these cool, like
I
rocker.
thought, who in the world has taken over
And I
this
was
festival?
walking around.
This is the guy that's in charge.
They didn't know. They didn't know. In fact, they thought I was with the band.
Right.
And so I walked by and the electrician, who was really uptight, not a very like fun loving person, went by, and I walked and I spit on the ground in front of him, kind of like tough guy. And he like,
What a
what
show.
a pig, he said. And he
Yeah.
turned around. I said, excuse me? And he goes, oh, Randy.
He's the boss.
But I walked around, and Dave Snowden, who is from Louisville and does all the entertainment, like at Churchill Downs when we did, Thurby and all the night racing, but he does the Kentucky State Fair. And I worked with him to buy the entertainment there too. So we still, 20 some years later, still laugh about that. In fact, when I found that picture for you, I sent it to him.
Uh-huh.
So yeah.
Proof that,
Just- yeah.
whatever you got to do to lift morale,
It was. And
whatever
that's-
you got to do.
Every year I try to do something. 2 years ago, we went past the $1.5 million mark on ticket sales. And again, we started off, it was a free event for 29 years. But I went out and I got a tattoo of the logo of the Bourbon Festival on the back of my leg. And just something kind of morale. They dared me to do it. So if you get us to 1.5 million, I will go do that. So,
What are you going to do for the Kentucky Bourbon Festival?
I don't
right?
know.
Oh, we got to think about that.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned like being amongst literal rock stars. You're now among like a different class of rock stars, because the master distillers, the figureheads of these epic distilleries, they're known to their legions of fans as idols,
They are.
and they love to interact with their fans. How do you compare that fandom to the state fairs and the literal rock stars that you've been around?
Well, most of my life, it was rare. I always knew it was a rare opportunity to get to meet these people, and
Yeah.
kind of fun. But at the Bourbon Festival, the idea is that everybody's backstage, right? I mean, everybody gets to walk up and meet their idol. And several master distillers have told me that the weirdest thing that they had the hardest time adjusting to was being idolized like that, and having people actually wanting a photo and an autograph, because a lot of these guys were engineers. I mean, Connor
Yeah.
was on. These
Connor
guys are,
O'Driscoll said it's almost, he says, I can't look out and I cannot believe that all these people are here waiting to talk to me at the Kentucky Bourbon Festival. He said it's overwhelming to almost see the crowd. And he said that at some point, it's like something switches in his head and he thinks, okay, this is now a show, and I got to give them
That's
the
right.
show that,
That's right.
and I'm going to share my knowledge and be myself, but I also have to put on a show.
Right. And he mentioned, he's like, he had to realize that people were there to meet the master distiller,
Yeah.
not necessarily. And that's kind of the thing with me. I mean, I've had one person recognize me, a bartender, and he wanted me to sign an autograph. I'm like, are you serious? But I don't want to be the show.
Yeah.
I have to step back and put everybody forward. And there are different people that have wanted to come and do things at the event that would upstage the distillers. And I always want the master distillers and the
Leave them
maturation,
alone. Yeah.
people that are really making the juice to be the star always.
Your first year as the head of the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, and then you saw kind of how people behave around master distillers. Did that kind of take you back to look around and go, oh my gosh, like they're coming?
I knew that was going to happen. I mean,
Yeah.
because we had the year of COVID.
Well, there again, you know your audience.
Yeah.
And you knew
Yeah.
your audience wants to meet the master distiller, and you knew to tap into that.
Right. And that's really the
Wait a minute.
the three
Like,
things.
why am I just realizing that now? Wow.
We protect that experience. So it's not about more people. It's a boutique event that we're trying to keep literally small. We have not
Yeah.
increased the number of tickets over the 5 or 6 years, even with popularity, because it would ruin the experience. It would take away the ability for that one-on-one engagement that the distilleries all want. But put the right consumer in front of the right distillery. That's the ticket. The bottle sales and the ability to get the top enthusiasts now from around the world to come, we're important for the distilleries. For 29 years, the few distilleries that were involved, we were purely expense. They had to pay and have these little cottages.
They had to pay?
Yeah, they had to pay to be there, and then they had to bring all their little buildings, and they couldn't sample or sell. They could sell hats and
Whoa,
coasters.
wait. They couldn't sample or sell? Why?
You could not. The laws, even in
Was it
2019.
was it a dry county?
No, Nelson County. No, it was just literally because of the 3-tier system for retail. The distilleries didn't have the ability to do that. Now, with the laws that have changed, thanks a lot to the KDA and working with the legislature.
They said, hey, if we want this to work, we have to make sure that these laws like work for us too.
So the first 2 years was sampling only, but distilleries could bring their spirits onto the festival grounds because of our permit. The only legally way they could do that was on my permit. And now with the House Bill 500 going through, they can bring their own product in on their own gift shop provision. So the 30% that is produced, and not getting into the legal board. I learned more about alcohol and spirits law in the last couple of years, but now with the law change, they can do bottle sales. So that's that opportunity. When we tell people to come to the festival, they will be able to buy bottles they can't get anywhere else in the world. We're checking that box by doing that. So, and the distilleries wouldn't think of not being there. And that's what I want to keep, because I've heard several distilleries have dropped out of various other events and whiskey events and other festivals, but they've stayed with us. So that's probably the biggest affirmation.
How did the Kentucky Bourbon Festival job come your way?
I was at Churchill Downs, and then I left and ran stadium security for the Bengals, the Browns, and then Penn State football. And I was on the road every Wednesday, and then Saturdays and Sundays are game days. So a lot of times I wouldn't get home till Monday. And I can't be this road warrior, albeit it's only from September to January, but it was just gone the entire time. So January, New Year's Day, I was turned on my computer for some dumb reason, because I never do that on New Year's Day. And there was a job posting there. And I had come off of Gettysburg before Louisville and had done a brew festival there and a couple of other festivals. And I thought, the craft beer industry, bourbon is going through that right now. And I don't see that changing. And this is pre-COVID, mind you. So I the cover letter and traditional, and I sent it down, and 2 days later, so January 3rd, the search firm guy called me, and I had an interview, and they fast tracked me through, I guess, because by the third week in January, I had a job and I was going to work already.
That was fast. You've always been a bourbon fan?
Yeah.
So you could actually, so many people I know apply for jobs, right? And they think, well, that sounds cool to be head of a bourbon festival, right? Yeah. You think it's going to be one thing, but you have to be able to have conversations with master distillers. You have to be able to say, what are the brands that are on everybody's minds? What's the heritage? What are the new and up and coming ones? Like, you have to have, I think, like a good frame of reference to even like navigate in those waters.
Sure. Well, and I'm willing to immerse myself. Yeah. When I moved to Gettysburg, I deep dived into the history. I mean, I'm already a history buff, but I learned and I got to know the people, the movers and shakers. And one day, probably a year and a half into my time living there, I was walking up the main strip with the lady who ran the YWCA. And she goes, how do you know? Everybody's like knocking on the windows and waving at you. I'm like, that's my job. I have to be a politician. I've got to be out. And so it's the same. It's played out here in Bardstown. I'm more immersed in Bardstown.
Because your offices are located there.
Yeah. Right. Actually overlooking the festival grounds. Yeah. So, I mean, but that's how that all kind of came about. And it just, no looking back. But I mean, you have to learn the industry. Yeah. And I'll admit, I enjoyed bourbon, but I didn't have a collection. I wouldn't go stand in line for hours to, and
now you're one of those people.
No, I've never, I mean, no offense to the
I've
distilleries.
turned into one of those people too.
No.
Somebody asked me, what's the deal with your wall of bourbon, Claudia? And I'm like, that's what we do.
That's our business.
It's our business.
Horses and bourbon.
What was the state of the Kentucky Bourbon Festival when you took over as COO?
Honestly, it was not good. I mean, it was on the verge of bankruptcy, to be honest. I mean, it was one of those things where the industry, the board knew enough that there was something happening. Distilleries were dropping out. We're down to, I half jokingly say it would be down to Beam and Heaven Hill would have been the last two there just because they're so local and so ingrained. But Beam probably would have pulled out and Heaven Hill would have been the last one standing, and there would be either they would have taken it over as a marketing or something, but
there was just no benefit to them then.
No, zero benefit. And you have events like Bourbon and Beyond and whiskey events that are coming up that are focused on actually putting people with a wallet in front of you. And we had to, I inherited a study. So the board had the wherewithal to know that they were in trouble. And Mike Manchett at the time
Mhm.
was running Bardstown Tourism. This is before he went back to Frankfurt, but he was the interim. They had one or two staff members they had left. So it was down to a board and a volunteer. So Mike came over as head of tourism.
So almost bankrupt, and everybody's like leaving town.
Jumping ship.
I'm done.
Ships are,
This is not my problem. You all
They're
figure
all
it out.
hunkering on the back, on the stern as it was starting to go down.
And I think what blows my mind about thinking about that, this is the Kentucky Bourbon Festival. This is our premier product.
But
I guess
Claudia,
I can look back on it now and think,
you
what?
probably have heard of Bardstown. I'm honest. I had never heard of Bardstown when I was working at Churchill Downs. So when I was interviewing, I talked to a bunch of people that are from Louisville, and they either had never heard of the Bourbon Festival, or some hadn't even really heard of Bardstown other than knowing us out there.
Yeah.
And a few that had a recollection or an experience with the Bourbon Festival wasn't a good one.
right.
Because
It felt like I always hear the comparison of a church picnic, because I just remember going and seeing a lot of kids there, and it just really kind of struck me strange that, oh wow, we've got kids. Can we drink here? Like it was that kind of feel of not wanting to mix bourbon, and there was just lots of children's events, which is fine, but I was so confused.
Well,
I was like so confused.
And it's in the bourbon capital of the world.
It's in the bourbon capital of the world, and we've got bounce houses.
And Bill Samuels Jr. once famously basically called out the mayor and city leadership. If you're going to call yourself the bourbon capital of the world, by God, you better start acting like it.
Right.
And that's why I've aligned with him so well, because he learned first year, a couple months into it, what I was planning on doing. I got him all wound up and got him excited about it, because he just knew that we were going to move it forward. And he donated a Maker's Mark barrel to be bottled and sold by us as a fundraiser. And this is where I'm going to be very honest. I enjoyed bourbon, but I wasn't into bourbon. So I didn't know what a barrel pick was. I didn't know that you would go off to a distillery and they'd offer you barrels that you could select from and actually have it bottled with your name on. But that was the first. Now we've done well over 100 a couple of years later. But the very first one was that, because I'm like, what the heck am I supposed to do with a barrel? No. We bottle it.
What am I supposed to do
with
with this?
A barrel of booze sitting here. But I
How
didn't
am
know
I
what a
supposed to
barrel
take
pick.
this home?
I mean, Westport wine and
Where
whiskey.
am I supposed to put this?
I mean, Westport was very early in that, and I lived down the road on Westport Road, and went in there and bought a couple of like private barrel selects that people had picked out, and started asking the questions. So you never stop learning.
Yeah.
And now I look back, I still think I'm a novice, and I don't have that great of a palate. People expect me to be an expert on everything bourbon, and I'm not, and I admit that. But I'm a lifelong learner. So if I know now and I look back what I knew when I walked in the door on day one, it's night and day. I mean, but you have to. You have to immerse yourself. So.
How did you not get overwhelmed taking that over, thinking, wow, we've got to not only get things upright, we've got to make money, we've got to get distillers on board. I mean, I'm just thinking of, my mind would have gone to list.
Yeah.
How do I just survive year one?
Well, it was a little bit like drinking out of a fire hose for sure. I mean, because, and keep in mind, this is before COVID. So I started in January.
Everything's going to be great. And then here comes March 2020.
Yeah. And I inherited a study. So the board had hired a firm to go in and do a study, like a viability study on the festival. And the outcome of that was the industry is still growing. So if you get yourself aligned and in pace, you've got a winning. So I inherited that study. So I read that and really got into it. But I went down to New Orleans for their bourbon festival because I wanted to see what a bourbon festival should look like, because I never attended this. And in my mind, and it really is I know how to run a brew festival. So this is, in a lot of ways, is the same model financially and layout as my brew festivals that we would work on. So that was kind of, but then I was full of energy, and I had a Zoom call with all the distilleries. And I mean, literally looked like the Hollywood squares, but with 40 squares, and telling all the distilleries what my vision is going to be. And Wes Henderson interrupted me in mid podcast, or in the mid speech, so to speak, and said, Randy, if you're capable of doing even 25% of what you just outlined, you can count Angel's Envy in.
Oh, wow.
And I'll never forget that. And because he didn't need to do that. And as you've gotten to know Wes, he's a pretty big character, you know, and I don't feel like he really hands out compliments that often. So that was a tough cookie. And the rest of the industry, I think, heard him say that. So then we're going, well, then COVID hits. and we grind to a halt. There's no way we're going to be able to pull off a live event. In August, we still had hopes of being able to hold the event and maybe move it into October. So I met the board and said, let's move it back into mid-October, maybe buy another month of clean air, literally, and it didn't happen. So late August, Steve Coombs and I sat down and said, we've got all this entertainment, all these speakers, these panels already planned. Why can't we go and do YouTube? And we'd never really thought of that. And if there's ever a silver lining in something like a pandemic, like the COVID, we had double lining. One was that we were able to do these 14 segments and announce them and release them on Facebook. And there was a lot of people at home.
Yeah.
And not a lot of good. They were looking for content, but there wasn't good content. So we went in kind of like what we're doing today, the production value. You don't cut corners. So we had all these master distillers coming in. They weren't going anywhere else in the world. They would come in and there'd be closed set, one or two people running cameras, but they'd walk in with studio lighting and boom mics and a script and someone like Steve Coombs that knew exactly what he was doing. So those people all went back into their companies and said, wow, because I think I had several say that they were expecting me with a cell phone. Like I'm going to do a selfie video. Like here I am. And we didn't do that. They walk in and saw multiple cameras in this kind of a production. So they were impressed. So the word got out back in the marketing people that the new guy's taking it seriously.
Yeah.
And the second part of it was the fact that all those people at home, thousands and thousands of people who probably never heard of Bardstown, Kentucky either, had never heard of the Kentucky Bourbon Festival. And now they're at home watching it. And then on the outro of every segment, there was a link to the website and people started following us. I mean, we had 4,000 people on our e-newsletter, and it was like a charitable, like a Chamber of Commerce newsletter. It wasn't even news. It was just ramblings, and the website was horrible. And so we fixed it. Now we've got almost 50,000 followers.
Crazy.
I mean, our email addresses. Yeah. Of course, we always get people wanting to buy our email list because it's very clean and we get very little unsubscribed. So it's very desirable in the marketing world, but
it's
we'll
a
never
pretty
sell
active list.
Oh yeah. Now. Yeah. Because we've turned it into not just 4 days a year where it's relevant. It's now there's a lot of things we do all year round. And we started a new VIP club last year that is a year round experience. So we're trying to.
I want to ask you about like looking back at the 2025 benchmarks last year, and correct me on these numbers here. Did you have like reports indicate that you had over 7,000 people, more than that, 7,000 people poured onto the grounds. Attendance was up 13% for a fourth consecutive sellout. That's like in the festival business, like Black Friday style crowds.
Mm-hmm.
And literally when you open the gates, people come running in for special releases. What has been your first thought year after year, especially after 2025, to look at that and go, oh my goodness, they're still running through the gates. We're still selling out. How do you reflect on that? And then also set the mark even higher, raise the bar even higher for going into year 35.
I can feel my anxiety coming back.
Sorry. I'm so sorry.
No. Well, first of all,
everybody wants to know how you do it.
I never assume that the tickets are going to sell. I mean, every day on the pre-sale day, I wake up at 3 a.m, my stomach's at knots. And then 6 hours later, we sold out VIP in 4 minutes. And last year we sold out every ticket available in 48 hours. And that's never happened. So, I mean, that's affirmation that we're doing it right. Mm-hmm. But it also is, I always remind our distillers, we've created a monster with the bottle sales.
Yes.
More and more people are buying the tickets and VIP packages to get access to buy the bottles, not just to come to a sampling event, which was my vision. So we've had a couple of meetings just recently with the big distilleries that create all that fervor in the lines and talked about how can we alleviate that so it doesn't hurt the experience for the other people. So, I mean, that's what kind of keeps me sharp is just, I can't assume that distilleries and sponsors are always going to want to be there because the new shiny thing always does come along.
Yeah.
And I always try to make sure that our people that are buying tickets know that they're going to be able to get some access to special things still. And we're trying to protect the experience still. Mm-hmm. The sampling is still by and large why we do this is to get people to try new things, not necessarily to buy a bottle and turn around and run to their car. I mean, there's coaster wagons full of bottles and thank God for those people. But I always try to remember there's always someone coming in to bourbon that could easily be intimidated, like I was. So I remember how it was when I sat down with people that knew what they're talking about and just kind of went along for the ride. So you have to produce something that's strong enough for the top consumer enthusiast, the professional buyer, if you will, the international market, which is now growing, but also make it so it's approachable for people that are just coming into it.
Well, year 35 is coming up. Before we go into all the new things that are coming up for year 35, quick break, coming right back with more from Randy Prasse ahead of this year's Kentucky Bourbon Festival.
I grew up in a Ford family. My dad worked at the Louisville Ford assembly plant. And it wasn't just a brand for us, it was a way of life. And that's the thing about Ford, is that they're woven into a part of our culture here in Kentucky and across America. So no matter where life's adventures may take you, Town & Country Ford is along for the ride. Whether you're a neat sipper or a cocktail king, the ultimate pilgrimage is calling. The Kentucky Bourbon Festival returns to the bourbon capital of the world, Bardstown, Kentucky, September 10th through the 13th. Tickets go on sale soon. Mark your calendars for April and go to kybourbonfestival.com.
Come on.
Welcome back. I'm sitting down with Randy Prasse, the COO of the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, gearing up for a huge year. It is year 35 of this premier bourbon experience. And Randy, you're the boss. So I want to know, this is our sponsored question from the Kentucky Bourbon Festival. What is the one bottle that you crack open or want to crack open at the end of the festival to celebrate another successful year?
Well, it's got to be made in Kentucky. Is that too generic? You're trying to put me on the spot?
Should we refer to what we have here? Is this what you would like to crack open? Or do you try to be careful not to cater to a specific brand?
That's the thing. It's like asking who your favorite child is. But But I mean, there are certainly bottles that I enjoy. I mean, the birthday bourbon from Old Foe, Michter's. I've had Michter's 20, but I've never had the 25. I would love to have something like that. I mean, I've had the Pappies and I know there's a whole mystique and people still go crazy for it, but that probably wouldn't be the first one that I'd go for. I mean, I'd go for something that's pretty special. Yeah. But I really honestly don't have any favorite brand. I mean, 1792 is always solid. But we do a featured distillery every year, and going into it, people are like, man, you're going to get, no, the distilleries are going to get along. That's the whole thing of this industry. People go back to the Heaven Hill fire and how their biggest competitors help keep them in business.
Exactly.
As opposed to standing on the hill and watching it burn. So I said, I think we'll do this to where if every distillery knows they've got an opportunity to rotate through to be the featured highlighted distillery like New Riff is this year, no one's ever said a word. And we're booked 3 years out right now. I mean, and that all started again with Bill Samuels and Maker's Mark.
Did they suggest that?
They gave us this barrel. And I said, Steve, we need to celebrate them. We need to do something special. So we did the first distillers dinner at River House with Chef John Veronese. And then we marketed the single barrels and we gave them top billing and no one ever said a thing. The next year was Beam with Knob Creek. And then we had Bardstown Bourbon Company and we've had Angel's Envy. Now this year with New Riff. Next year is going to be yet to be determined, but we have someone already in place.
So every year, one distiller gets featured.
Above all.
But everybody still gets love.
Right. Oh, yeah.
How do you go about selecting who that will be each year?
Well, again, the first year was just, we need to do something nice for Maker's Mark to elevate them coming out of COVID. And we had 9 distilleries in 2019 and then get rid of 2020. We had 34 in 2021, the first year of the new festival, and half of them were craft distillers. I mean, New Riff came in as I didn't know who New Riff was, and they just made a mark. And they're one of the more unique, fun experiences to go there on site and do the tour up in Covington. And they come in every year. Their master mixologist comes in and gets to create the featured cocktail for that year. So last year, Angel's Envy was the featured distillery, and they had the featured cocktail. So this year, New Riff, and we don't know what New Riff's going to come up with, but that's what we will be debuting at the April 9th distillers dinner down at the River House.
And that's kind of like a precursor. I love that you have like events throughout the year, that it's not like just get your tickets, wait till September, that there's barrel picks, that there's the distillers dinner. Talk about like why that's important to kind of like build buzz leading up to the actual event.
Well, the first year we did the distillers dinner, again, trying to showcase Maker's Mark, who just happened to be the number one distillery through their bar there at River House. But we wanted to try to get in touch with the Louisville bourbon enthusiasts. And I'm talking year one. We had not even produced the festival yet. Up to that point, we were just talking about what it's going to be. And I didn't even know really. I mean, I figured we could pull it off, but it would be tight. But again, back to the fact that so many people in Louisville had either not heard of the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, or if they did, they pictured the old, with the beer garden and the big inflatable beer can and which again, there was nothing wrong with that. It served the community well and a lot of volunteers.
So I came right out and said, why are there bounce houses? But it totally worked.
It did.
For the situation back then.
But we had to change it.
Got to change it. So got to make some money.
That I could have bought a billboard down by the soccer stadium for the same amount of money as I paid to have the dinner at River House. And I put 150 people in that room, and they saw the quality that, again, it was all about, we had to tell people and show people that we meant business. It was going to be a serious business bourbon event, not bouncy houses. And we had to be that because the distilleries were leaving. And so the first River House dinner was really that. And then that first year we were selling tickets for $10. $10 a day or $20 for the weekend because we weren't proven. This is the first year that we had to go, that we went to a paid ticket. And it wasn't the fact that it was $10. It was the fact that we were charging that got so much pushback. And Fred basically came out and just, being from Bardstown, just said people don't like change and they didn't like having the free event taken away from them. They've since, I think most of them have learned how important that festival is to the community for economic development, because it's definitely an economic driver. I mean, the hotels
economic
and
driver
Airbnbs
for the
and
state. It's like it's become an economic driver for the state.
It is, and that's very humbling because I mean, the tourism side of me is always very aware of heads and beds and how important that is. And with an insider like Mike Mangent and Jim Barry, over there in tourism, they get it. So bourbon is one of the things that Brand USA, which is the tourism entity for the entire country, each state gets to have their thing, and it's bourbon. So we're definitely getting promoted nationally and internationally with their help.
Yeah. You'd mentioned you're seeing more international travelers coming to the festival. Do you have like a number idea of like how much that keeps increasing year over year, or where you would like to be with that?
Well, last year we had 15 countries. Now that could be one person from a country or two people. So it's not like we're not where I want to be. I'd like to grow the international, but the first year we had a couple from Canada that had been before, and they came and did the Bourbon Trail anyway. So they're like, well, they accidentally came and found the festival actually because of the timing. Canada, and we had a couple from New Zealand, and those people are still coming, but now we've grown to more UK. With Kenya, there was a group. Kenya is a very big emerging market for bourbon, which it shows my ignorance to the world geography and what cultures are into. But so some of these are distilleries bringing groups over, or tourism or Department of Ag, because we're also the number one ag export if you think about it. But yeah, I would like to continue to grow that, but I'd also like to figure out a way to get the Bourbon Festival itself maybe overseas, or do something like a road show where we entice people to come to the main. Yeah. But time will tell.
As you approach year 35, I mean, the 35th anniversary, you are the COO of the Kentucky Bourbon Festival. What are you looking to do? Is it, let's get more people, but you said you've kind of limited your tickets, so you're not going to keep increasing more and more tickets? Or do you make more experiences? Or do you allow more of these double-decker houses in where the experience feels like a completely different from last year? What is it that you have your eye on for year 35?
Well, I'm always quality over quantity, and most of, not the state fair, or the Derby, but many of my events are more the boutique Bastille Days, smaller, that kind of thing. But so I want to get better. I want every year people stop me, and there's a group of 4 guys that have been every year. And the first year didn't go so well. There was a lot of technology glitches, and it was getting our legs underneath. And all the experience in the world doesn't matter if on game day if you can't,
if things don't work.
Things don't work. So, but they stop me every year and say, "Man, this is amazing! I can't wait to see what you do next year." And that kind of fuels me. I think of that conversation, and if I don't have it, I'm like looking for them because I want to have their feedback. we are actually selling 50 fewer tickets this year than previous years. And we started getting hit on social media about the Bourbon Festival overselling and wish they wouldn't keep selling more tickets. So I wanted to really look at that because we hadn't. I looked at the number of tickets; it's been flat. But the light bulb went off in my head. We're not putting more people in there. The tents are getting bigger.
Yes, they
and
are.
it's the same square footage. So the aisles are getting narrower. Now they got this phenomena of people standing in line for bottles. It's the same number of people, the same venue. It's just the distilleries are investing more.
Yeah.
So, so I try to keep that in perspective. We don't need to grow. That's the other thing. Financially, the nominal ticket increase, and we have new sponsors and distilleries paying a little more. We exist as an organization to put that event on. So I always like to be a good steward and have money in reserve in case another pandemic or something like that should hit us, God forbid. But we know bourbon survives.
Yeah.
Bourbon got strong during the COVID years and for years after that.
Well, even now with tariffs, with Canada banning our whiskey, do you expect big numbers still regardless? People will come to seek out this event
I think
this year?
And the industry has leveled off. There's been a lot of doom and gloom and the sky is falling. But if you look at the barrel numbers and sales today compared to what they were even pre-COVID, we're still plateauing, but it's still way up.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a genuine interest there. And the distilleries have started releasing things more readily, even some of the allocated product. And the prices have come down. I stopped at my local store of choice and picked up 3 bottles, and they were all under $40, and they were $58.
That's crazy.
Before. Yeah. One of them was under $30. So I think the consumer now feels that they get a chance to win because they've been waiting in lines and they've been forced to buy on the secondary market and pay these exorbitant prices. And now some of the things that you couldn't get your hands on for less than $400 or $500, you can go and buy at MSRP for $80 or $90. So I think that's where we can really shine, is we can continue to feature these distilleries because the products are now readily available. And we had one distillery that didn't want to participate a couple years ago because they said, if we come and we sample and then people can't go out and buy it, they're mad at everybody. And that was a valid point. So, we don't want to just the forbidden fruit where you can try it, but you're never going to be able to buy it.
That's been the clincher right there. To be able to buy on property has been incredible. What were some of the things that worked last year that will be back again this year?
Well, we always try to elevate the VIP experience. That's become a very important part of what we do. The education, the content, making sure that we're, again, put the distillery first. What do you want to talk about? And then we go out and compare it. Does the consumer want to hear that? Because there's a lot of nerdy chemical
and you don't
type
want to
stuff.
Bring up, completely promote things that are so in the weeds that the average person be like, I don't even know I don't even know what's going on.
And there's kind of been a return. High proof has always recently been the high thing. That's everybody's buying. They don't even care what it tastes like. If it's 136 proof, I got to have it. Well, that's like Bottle and Bond, 100 proof. I think this is our Bottle and Bond here. Does very well with cocktails. The bartenders like to use Bottle and Bond because it holds up. But there's a whole push, and I don't know if it's health or what, but there's a kind of a resurgence of the lower proof 86, 90 type proof things in cocktails. So I didn't know that 5 years ago. Everybody was on this trajectory. The higher the proof, the better. And now, so when Steve and I sit down and start talking about the programming, if low proof cocktails is a thing, then let's put one of the, so we kind of talk. I give him a lot of latitude because I go back to the old newspaper days, and it was church and state. Advertising didn't control or dictate what went in or didn't go in on editorial. And I treat Steve as editorial, and I'm the marketing side of things. So unless I say we really have to have, a couple years ago, we needed to have a cigar session, and Steve doesn't like smoke cigars, nor do I, but I know it's part of the the whole culture. So I kind of stepped over and said, I need you to do one session on cigars.
Just one.
But otherwise I tried to stay out of his way. And because I think that's the integrity of the programming is a lot better if I'm not driving it from a marketing perspective. I'm letting him drive it based on what his knowledge of the industry and distilleries, and he's a writer, so he also knows what people are reading, what they want to read. So that formula works too. You surround yourself with quality people and get the heck out of the way.
You've got some big dates that are coming up. Ticket sales go on sale coming up when this airs. It'll be next week. So what are the ticket dates? And then I have to ask you, how quickly do you think they're going to sell out?
So
are we going to break the record from last year?
Oh, I hope not. I'd like a nice steady sale, but I figure out, I believe I understood why we sold out so quickly. But for this year, April 13th is the insider. Okay. So earlier I mentioned those almost 50,000 people subscribed.
Those are the insiders. Okay, you got to subscribe.
So that's
Is it too late to subscribe?
Yeah, you go right to the website and click to be a Bourbon Insider.
Hurry up.
And then you get the email and then you get early access.
Oh, wow.
But so that's where the feeding frenzy starts. 50,000 people trying to buy 7,000 tickets. And out of that, and I've always had the philosophy, if everybody is a VIP, then no one is. So we guard that percentage. And we have people, they had a sponsor, well, Oris actually, our watch sponsor, came in and they wanted to be involved just with VIP. And we couldn't make that work. I said, I'll put you right inside the main gate. Well, I said, don't ever underestimate the buying power of our consumer, because of that 800 that was fortunate enough to get their package for VIP for the weekend, there's probably 1,000 people walking around the grounds with general admission tickets who had been VIP before or wanted to be. So don't underestimate, someone come in and they killed it.
Yeah.
They sold. I asked them what would be a successful event for you, and they said if we sell 3 or 4 watches. Now, mind you, they're $2,500 on up. They sold 4 the first night, just on the opening night preview. And now they didn't tell me how many they sold, but they've been back for 3 years.
Well, they're coming back for a reason.
Yeah, So anyway, I mean that's probably the thing. So get in on the Bourbon Insider.
Yeah.
Be patient. We broke the internet last year. All the VIP tickets were sold in 3.5 minutes. Our website and the box office website, and it came back up. We had some glitches that we fixed, but then in the years past, we'd sell those VIPs out, and I think people would just check out and go about their way because you could buy tickets into July in past years. I think what happened last year is people wanted the VIPs. They knew they were coming, so when they didn't get their VIP, they went ahead and immediately bought their general admission tickets for the weekend, because we sold out in 48 hours. I mean, we went on sale on a Wednesday, and Friday I was at lunch at Bardstown Bourbon Company, and I got the text message that we're completely sold out. There's nothing available. But I still wake up every morning and think we're not going to sell a ticket.
What if we don't sell one?
And that's a very real thing.
Pre-sale is April 13th. It opens to the public on April 14th.
Correct. If there's anything available.
If there's anything left. And are there any more chances to get anything over the summer?
Well, I mean, we do some ticket promos. Evergreen Liquors is our partner.
You'll have like little giveaways here or there, right?
Yeah. And then there's a running joke that if I like to invite people, like I'll be in the elevator and, oh, you like bourbon? And next thing you know, I'll give them my card. Why don't you come?
Just come to our little festival.
Every year I do that, and I to half a dozen people. But now the joke is all I need to do go up to the ticket office and say, Randy said I had free tickets here. So we're always very careful about that. But I love having new people come to the festival.
Is there one thing for somebody that you recommend that if you are coming to the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, make sure you do this?
Well, and we're very strategic in that while the VIP experience is nice, we really do focus on what the general admission person can get. Yeah. And so we try to
those are your people that are going to be coming back next year or tell their friends about it. And if it's like, I feel like if the average person has an incredible time, you know what? I'm going to do more next year. I'm going to come back.
Well, and I overheard one Sunday, one of the years, I don't remember what year, but a guy was on the phone and had a couple of buddies, and he was talking to buddies that were back in Seattle saying, you missed this. You got to get back here. And I just happened to overhear. I didn't engage them. I'm just listening to somebody on their phone. But no, I think that it's going to be a different event every year, but we don't change things just for the sake of change. It has to be strategic. So the layout, and hopefully you've been a number of times, hopefully you notice the layout's getting better.
Yeah.
Again, we cut down the number of people because I have a big formula that I used at Churchill Downs that was kind of calculating all the square footage, and then you start taking everything out. Porta potties have a footprint. Every body, whether you're a worker or a festival goer, you take up the same space. So we backed out all of that, every tent, everything, to make sure that we weren't cramming more people in. And I said, well, we have to sell 50 fewer tickets because my formula says so. And so some of these things I'm a rule follower, and other times I kind of go off and just do my thing.
The structures were amazing last year. I think that really took me off guard. I thought it was raining one day, like a little bit, and you could go inside. I think I was by Angel's Envy, and I'm like, oh, I can go wait out the rain in here. But they were tasteful. They went up, not out, right? That seemed to be the thing. And they played well into whatever programming that distillery wanted to provide, whether it was somebody speaking, whether I think Whiskey House had music in a lounge, like everything. It was just a wild addition to the whole experience.
We're a bourbon festival first, and then the music is layered in, the shopping, the marketplace, the food trucks, which obviously you need, but everything is just a part of the experience. Now, we lose money on the entertainment. We lose money, quite frankly, on the marketplace, because we basically rent the spaces at our cost, just to make sure we've got someone there. We're not trying to make money off of everybody. And so, I mean, that's probably the thing that you will hopefully continue to see, is the event is being produced better, executed better by the team. I've got a dream team. I mean, people that have worked with me throughout my career. I've got a couple people that used to be at Churchill Downs that work with me. The president of Cutter Construction, who just retired at the end of the year, is now, I hired him, so he's working with us as project manager. So I've got this great team. And I was gone last year for 3 hours. Somebody had to use the rental truck and a trailer to run into downtown Louisville to get all of our VIP glassware. I left and I didn't get a phone call the whole time.
Well, you're running things like the philosophy of Disney World, right? It's like if you have, we don't need to add 10,000 new experiences and new this and new that. It's if you have an incredible customer experience time, and as a customer, you are totally satisfied and people are there to help you, I'm going to keep coming back again and again. Like you blow people away with the customer experience.
Because you're consistent.
Yeah.
And they know that you care the experience over profit. And some people might argue that that's not the case with Disney, but I mean, they could probably make a lot more money and ruin the experience. So we're always, because the experience is important to everybody, not just the people that are coming. You want that kind of, we've got such an amazing, cool venue with all the mature trees. It's a park. So you want that park setting, but the distilleries also want that setting, because they don't benefit by a line that stretches for an hour and a half. Because you only get a chance to talk to a few of them, and those people that are in line are probably not going to get the product they want by the time they get up to the front of the line. And meanwhile, they didn't experience anything else other than standing in line. So we try to really work that so people can sample and still have that experience, or you can get serious and get in line and buy something. But we've talked a number of different things that hopefully will benefit the general admission customer too, not just the VIP. I mean, they get the hour early, but that's part of, you're spending $800 up to $7,000 for a VIP package. You expect to have your own entrance and to get in a little early. But again, the people that were VIPs last year may not get VIP this year, so now they're on the outside looking in. But there's definitely a sense of urgency. I love selling out. My mom and I both worked at the same pizza place growing up, and it was so small, and there was always a line out the door. And I asked the owner, I said, why don't you buy the building next door and double? He goes, this is the experience our guests want.
Yeah.
And they make money on bar because they're waiting for their table. But as soon as you double the size and you're half empty, then that doesn't work. If you stay small and full all the time, that's a better kind of an experience, that density. So that's where we're staying with ticketing.
I think it's worked just fine for you. I know big things are going to happen this year. I want to wrap up with our rapid fire round. You ready?
Boy.
You better sit up for these hard-hitting questions. Yeah. So first rapid fire round question: Wisconsin cheese curds or Friday night fish fry?
I'll go cheese curds.
Bourbon neat or a brandy old fashioned?
Bourbon old fashioned.
Bourbon old fashioned. Best part of Bardstown, the history or the people?
That is tough. I have to say the people, because I have to work with the people. It's like in Gettysburg. You know? It's a contemporary city set on the backdrop of history, and that's exactly what Bardstown is. There's a thriving community there, and I love the people.
One festival disaster that you turned into a win.
Ooh, boy, that was, well, let's just go modern Kentucky Bourbon Festival, first year. We hadn't even opened yet. So everybody's on edge, me, and it rained 6 inches of rain in 2 hours on the final setup day. And from the church lot is high, and then it goes down into the main grounds and down to the lower. We had a current. I could have put a kayak in and whitewater rafted. I mean, it was water going across, and we had trucks stuck up to the axles. And the muddier it got, the harder it is to repair. So we sat and said, we got to do something. It's a mud pit right now, and we haven't even opened. People were talking about putting straw. And I said, have you ever seen any of the old Egyptian movies where the people are in there in the mud pits with straw? I don't want to make bricks. I want to fix the grass. And then someone said mulch, and that wasn't going to be an option. So one of our board members has a friend that owns a bunch of rental property and had just torn up carpeting. So we went out and a semi-truck full of carpeting and put it down in the mud, knowing that was ruined. And then I bought a brand new roll of white light furniture. This is the only color available. And we put that down. And so people felt like they were bougie walking the red carpet.
Funny.
But literally it was just for...
You have no idea what's underneath all this.
No, and it was all ruined. And the really cool thing is after that, David Mandel, who was my board chairman at the time, at the annual meeting in December, presented me with this framed with a little cut of that carpet. And it said, thanks to your ingenuity and leadership, you saved the Bourbon Festival. And that hangs in a very prominent spot because it's just one of those things where you pull something random and it works.
And people think, oh, this is the VIP area. This is a lounge space.
People were actually taking pictures and
video. Take pictures. And you're thinking, they have no idea. What is the one thing everyone should do at the Kentucky Bourbon Festival at least once?
Try something that you had never tried. I was never really into the high rye or rye whiskeys, and I tried my first there at the Bourbon Festival. So I've had 3 drinks in 6 years at the Bourbon Festival, and one of them was with Fred and Freddie. And I can't say no, I'm not drinking. I mean, you have to when you're invited to drink with. Yeah. But I would say try something different. If you're a wheated fan, try something a higher rye. If you're a high rye person, if you only drink cocktails, try drinking it neat or put it on the rocks. Just kind of expand, broaden your horizons a little bit. I mean, we'll have over 300 SKUs there this year, 65 distilleries, from all the ones you'd expect to see to the ones you've never heard of. And that's really kind of the cool thing about the event is that you get to, even if you have tried it and been there and done it, you're going to be able to find something you haven't done.
Randy? If this were full, I'd cheers, toast to you, man.
We should have
Thank you.
had that.
I know we should have. Thank you again.
Cheers.
And congratulations on 35
Thank you.
years, my
Thanks
friend.
for having me.
Thank you so much. Yay. Thank you so much for watching the podcast. No matter where you're watching this right now, please leave a review because that gets the word out about this particular podcast. So until next week, have a good one, everybody. Cheers.